In Africa, the Queen's death renews a debate about the legacy of the British Empire. This was written by Abdi Latif Dahir, Lindsay Chutel, and Elian Peltier, published on September 9th for the New York Times. Nairobi, Kenya. Though Queen Elizabeth II was revered by many in Africa, her death also reignited a different sort of conversation, one that touched on the legacy of the British Empire and the brutality the monarchy meted out to the people in its former colonies. In a younger generation of Africans growing up in a post-colonial world, some lamented that the Queen never faced up to the grim aftermath of colonialism and empire or issued an official apology. They said they wanted to use the moment to recall the oppression and horrors their parents and grandparents endured in the name of the crown, and to urge for the return of crown jewels, rare massive diamonds taken from the continent of Africa. Now, I'll say this: as a black American, you should know automatically how I feel about the British Empire. The British Empire is single-handedly responsible for generations of my family tree going through unspeakable horrors. And the effects of colonialism still affect us today. And while everybody is posting up memes of, the Queen and all of her stolen artifacts and stolen jewels that she had in her possession, you also have to have that same energy for white supremacy as a whole. You can't go on Twitter or go on Facebook or YouTube or Instagram and post funny memes about the Queen's death or talk very seriously about the effects of colonialism. Meanwhile, at the same time, you want to live in Western European nations, right? These nations are built on the backs and blood of Africans, of black people. All nations are literally built on the backs of us, or we are the byproducts of the era of colonialism and the beginnings of modern globalization. All countries that are successful today literally built it on human trafficking and slavery. So you cannot just have this anger, selective outrage for the Queen, because all of white supremacy and Western civilization was built on this: blood, human trafficking, slavery, imperialism. The worst things that humanity is capable of happened on the African continent and in Asia and in several different places and the Americas, and it was built mostly perpetrated by the Spanish Empire, the Portuguese Empire, the Dutch, and the British, right? So have that same energy, not just for the Queen, but actually call for the abolishment of the monarchy, the abolishment of borders, the abolishment of nationalism as a whole, because all of these ideas are intertwined. You can't just say, on one hand, the Queen is bad, but, Britain is an okay place. No, Britain is a land that was built on Western imperialism. All the wealth that Europe has right now literally was stolen. Literally was stolen. All right, so you can look at the monarchy from the point of view of high tea and nice outfits and charity, said Alice Mugo, a 34-year-old lawyer in the Kenyan capital, Nairobi. But there's also the ugly side, and for you to ignore the ugly side is dishonest. Miss Mugo says she recently found her grandmother's movement pass, issued when the British colonial government in Kenya declared a state of emergency to help suppress the anti-colonial Mau Mau rebellion. The passes restricted the free movement of Kenyans. Wow, so during the time of the Queen, she was fighting the Kenyans who wanted to be free. She was keeping the Kenyans as colonial subjects. So all this talk about the Queen, being so nice to her subjects in the Commonwealth and all this is all bullshit, because she literally tried to keep the empire together. If she was really as noble, she would have let go of the empire. All right. By the way, my mother is from Belize, right? So my mother was actually born into the British Empire, right? I'll continue. It was while a young Elizabeth was on official tour of Kenya in 1952 that she learned of her father's death and that she would become queen. The clampdown on Kenyans, which began just months after the Queen ascended the throne, led to the establishment of a vast system of detention camps and the torture, rape, castration, and killing of tens of thousands of people. There was literally blood on this woman's hands. Okay, those mourning the Queen's death, Ms. Mugo said, were not aware of how her government robbed millions of basic freedoms. Similar sentiments were echoed by a South African political party, Economic Freedom Fighters, which said in a statement that it would not mourn the Queen because to us her death is a reminder of a very tragic period in this country and Africa's history. The queen, they wrote, was the head of an institution built up, sustained, and living off a brutal legacy of dehumanization of millions of people across the world. Some people will say, well, still have sympathy for when somebody dies. Nobody had sympathy for when Fidel Castro died, or Patrice Lumumba died, or when Malcolm X died, or when all of the heroes of the last century who fought and died for freedom for all people, when these people were killed, the government, the those in power, the media, told us to revile these people, to hate these people. They told us to hate Che Guevara. They told us to hate Muhammad Ali. They told us to hate Patrice Lumumba, Kwame Nkrumah, and Fidel Castro, and all of these people. But we're supposed to love the Queen. We're supposed to love the woman who allowed Kenyans to be put in concentration camps, to allow women to be raped, who tried to keep a brutal empire together. No, 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 no. All right, the Queen, they wrote, was the head of an institution built up, sustained, and living off a brutal legacy of dehumanization of millions of people across the world. The debate over how Africans should view the Queen went viral when Uju Anya, a Nigerian-born professor at Carnegie Mellon University, posted a tweet in which she wished the Queen excruciating pain on her deathbed for overseeing a thieving, raping, genocidal empire. Okay? When criticism came, including from her own university and Jeff Bezos, the billionaire founder of Amazon, Miss Anya doubled down. So I just got to say, Uju, if you're going to teach at Carnegie in the Western world, you can't have that energy just for the Queen, but not for all of Western civilization. Me, I walk around with that on my heart and in my soul and on my sleeve. I'll forever, forever hate Western civilization, white imperialism, white supremacy, and all the horrors that have come from it. And my duty in life is to fight against it with my voice, right? Never through violence, but with my voice, because this is an intellectual, psychological war that we're fighting. But you can't have this energy just for the Queen. Meanwhile, you take your paychecks from wherever Carnegie is based, right? It's not right. If anyone expects me to express anything but disdain for the monarch, she wrote, you can keep wishing upon a star. Her original tweet was removed by Twitter for violating the platform's rules. For some across the continent, the Queen was an admirable figure who represented continuity and balance in a changing world. In Ghana, tributes for Ma Lizzie were shared on Twitter. Okay. I grew to admire her over the years, just watching how she carried herself and her commitment to what she committed to at 25, said Yemi Adamolekun, the executive director of Enough is Enough Nigeria, a network of organizations promoting good governance. She just kept at it, and I think there's a lot to be admired in that regard. Unfortunately, with black people, just like with all people across the planet who were victims of colonialism, or who are living in the age of white supremacy, many people admire the same people who did us the most harm. In many countries you go to, you see that people love Germans or love Europe or love the European idea. Meanwhile, those same countries were literally destroyed by European colonizers. The same people who do not care about calling you all sorts of slurs when you go to their countries, and the same people who view you as second-class citizens when you move to those countries, those are the countries that people want to go to. And unfortunately, this is the effects of the white supremacist hypnosis that has infected the planet, right? So many people think that these leaders, the people we see like Angela Merkel, the Queen, and so many others are the ones that we should admire. Meanwhile, if we were actually in those societies, we are seen as second-class citizens. It's an embarrassment, it's a shame, but it's Stockholm Syndrome on the largest order. African leaders mourned the Queen's passing and offered condolences to Britain and her family. The president of Kenya and Ghana also ordered that flags be flown at half-staff for several days, drawing pushback on social media. Muhammadu Buhari, Nigeria's president, wrote on Twitter that the story of modern Nigeria will never be complete without a chapter on Queen Elizabeth II, a towering global personality and an outstanding leader. What an embarrassment. What an embarrassment. William Ruto, Kenya's president-elect, called the Queen's leadership of the Commonwealth admirable. The association, which was born out of the embers of the British Empire but has lost much of its earlier glory, has still attracted new members like Rwanda, Gabon, and Togo, which have had no colonial connections to Britain. For 27-year-old Naledi Mashishi, whose South African grandmother was forced to sing God Save the Queen anthem each day at school. Queen Elizabeth will forever remain the face of the empire and its bitter legacy in Africa. In the wake of the Queen's death, Miss Mashishi joined a legion of young South Africans demanding the return of the diamonds that form part of the crown jewels, cut from the Cullinan, which was discovered in South Africa in 1905 and considered the largest diamond ever found. The rare gemstones sit atop the imperial state crown and the sovereign scepter, which are both used during the coronation of the British Empire monarch. So, literally, stolen gems from Africa are a part of the crown jewels of the Queen, right? Should she return these? Absolutely. But should we also have that same energy for everything related to white supremacy? Absolutely as well. The stone was a gift from the Afrikaner governor to King Edward VII after the South African War, also known as the Anglo-Boer War. But black South Africans have questioned a minority government's right to bestow as a gift a gem uncovered during a time of brutal exploitation of black people. On her 21st birthday in 1947, the Queen made a speech from a still segregated Cape Town, pledging her service to the Commonwealth. So instead of speaking up against apartheid in South Africa, she went there and spoke to a segregated crowd, black people on this side, white people on this side, in black ass South Africa. How embarrassing. How embarrassing. Where's your conscience? How much power and money does it take for you to overlook humanity? I think there's something very disingenuous about saying the Queen or the current royal family have nothing to do with the past, Miss Mashishi said. Meanwhile, they are still happily wearing those stolen jewels. But with the Queen's passing, observers say that tough conversations about the empire's past actions in Africa will only continue to gain steam. It's way more than the diamond, said Labohang Feko, a political economist and a senior researcher at the South African think tank Trade Collective. There are not going to be easy conversations around this anymore. So, once again, the only point that I'll make is have this same energy, not only for the Queen or the monarchy or Britain, but for all white supremacy. Because, with the death of these people, it will not end. A lot of people say, oh, the future looks so good because there's no more apartheid, no more segregation, no more slavery. So racism will end, right? We're all just going to come together, all going to just be kumbaya. Absolutely not. These young kids are even more racist, even more dangerous. Look at Peyton Gentrin in Buffalo and all the other mass shooters. It's really bad for the future, I'm predicting. But we can still fight against it, and we still have hope.